Hey everyone! So, welcome to the third episode of Awaken Dreaming. This is going to be a interesting one. We're going to be diving into some interesting things that include your reality, how you manifest it, the butterfly effect, or as it's named like that. At least most people know it as the butterfly effect, and timelines, how to switch them, what they are, just a little gimmick on our flexible reality and what really kind of happens in some aspects behind the scenes as you're going through things.
And I am totally excited to be talking about this topic. And I guess just to kind of give you a little bit of insight in how we actually come up with the topics is we kind of have a chat and we talk about them and we have a list of topics and we're like, yeah, next topic's gonna be this. And then we come to the day of recording
And it doesn't happen.
and and we talk to our teams, our guide teams, and our guide teams are like, sorry, that episode's not today. And we're like, really? We're really looking forward to talking about that. And they're like, sorry. And so then we actually have to then figure out what the episode is about. And today, for in order for me to help with you to figure out what we're doing today, I had to listen to some Lion King songs.
Yep.
So circle of life, which then led me to thinking about butterflies, and here we are, butterfly effect
Yep.
and manifestation.
Yep. Uh, yeah, I'm kind of like this is one of the topics, as I told already, Jessica, I don't talk about often. Like I bring it up to certain people and etc. But it's like such a wide topic that has so many misconceptions and rules and like definitions within the spiritual community, or just in general, even some other ones like there's a huge aspect to spirituality that doesn't really include anything with what's it called, theology, right? Like religion or
Mhm.
beliefs or just spirit in general. A lot of it is actually connected to, let's say, either psychonauts or people that are more into the matrixy side of things, like the point that you create your own reality, that your mind is capable of much more than we believe or is told at first, and that you can train it or build up awareness around that to use it so you move through reality in a completely different way that's more fluid, that has more possibilities, that is kind of one of those things as it's depicted as like you think and it is or becomes. And there's a lot with it and a lot to it, and it bridges
Mm.
over into spirituality in general with basically all of the rest, including tarot readers and people that meditate and this and that and the other. I would believe even people that are in religion, like Catholics or other people, also look into it. I think Chinese, for example, or like anything with an Asian like cultures is kind of similar. Definitely, because they have a little hint, like a little bit of hints here and there on that.
And I mean, it definitely is in all religions. Like within the Catholic religion, a lot of people won't know this, but you have the mystics. Which, like, when we think of mystics, we think of spiritual. But when we think of mystics within Catholic, they are literally monks that believe in miracles and manifestations and pray, and they have a little bit of obscure beliefs that aren't necessarily within the standard Christian framework. But they're there. And these people have been known to like heal people with their hands and all sorts of crazy things. And you can find this again in any religion. Monks, same thing. They have their own standard, like within the Hindu, Buddhism, it's all there.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see and to say that it got reintroduced into the Western world in general, during a period where people weren't really that spiritual through like interesting. movies or whatever. I guess like everyone attributes The Secret to one of them, besides a bunch of
Hmm.
other culture things that swept everyone up in the last few years. And that's kind of how it got reintroduced back, but it was a thing long before that in many different shapes and forms. It's just usually not really connected all together into the same thing, which is quite interesting. But I feel like people in olden times with sacred areas or places of worship, regardless of the religion that was, and you could go to like African tribes or paganism or Catholics or something else, olden, maybe Egypt and etc., where people were aware of that and did actually work with that because I think one of the easier things to connect into that blows your mind or your reality open is either finding faith of some sort and then having experiences with that, or seeing how everything is connected, reflected, how there's certain triggers that happen throughout a certain amount of time, and that seems to bounce back into your future as some type of experience or some
Hmm.
sort of chain of events, and it all just seems like it's connected, bouncing back and forth and like shaping itself into something from just basic thought or feeling or intuition or emotion.
And this is actually where the butterfly effect really actually comes in, which is something so small that you do can have such a big effect. So for anyone that doesn't know the basic theory behind the butterfly effect, the easiest way that I've heard it explained is that if a butterfly flaps its wings, the effect of the butterfly flapping its wings, it actually creates a ripple that goes around the world, right?
Yep.
Now, obviously, the reality is that we aren't going to necessarily see the ripple that the butterfly creates that goes around the world, but that ripple still exists, and that's the butterfly effect. You don't necessarily see the ripple, but the ripple still happens.
Yeah, and that's kind of the whole gimmick behind transurfing, for example. If you want to learn more about this, there's a great, great book. I will link it obviously in the description or somewhere where yeah, it can go. If you're on Twitch rewatching this, then it'll be in the comments probably. It's Transurfing by some type of Vladimir, I believe, or someone I can't remember. Point is, there's a
Mhm.
whole series of them that explain how transurfing reality is, and what it basically is you jumping from different timelines onto different timelines by changing your own internal state. It might be mental, it might be emotional, it might be a few things at once, and kind of being aware of all the different multidimensional aspects of you and how that manifests and is reflected within just general reality. Do you want to like explain what are timelines, or should I?
You can go right ahead. But before we do that, I just want to say, just for anyone that is listening to the podcast, we do actually stream the podcast episodes on
Right.
Twitch.
Good point.
Um, so if you haven't been following us on Twitch, the address is Yuda.
It is twitch.tv and slash Utah Jazz. That's all you need to put in. You're going to instantly be taken to there. And we have like nice reviews of the episodes. We expand on the stories we have or the ideas or some of the misconceptions that we pick up along the way. And we kind of just chill with everyone who wants to chat, give some free card readings out. So if you ever want to like, talk to us more, that's where you can like catch us and connect with us on a more personal level as well.
Yep. And we'd love to see you there.
Yeah, for sure. The more the merrier. So, timelines. So timelines is a interesting little fact of reality that most people do not catch up on, which is you're not necessarily building a life from one little zero up to 100, and that's it. It's not a straight line. Like as we experience it in a linear way, we experience it in a linear way, but it is not a linear. um, actual action, if that makes sense. Basically, as you are in this present moment in time, you are of one state, and so you are like on a certain set of train tracks. With that certain set of train tracks, you're going a certain direction, but that can always change. You can jump off at any given point, take any type of turn, and it can be completely different from one moment to the next. Usually, the way it cycles out, the easiest and in the way that no one really notices, is you go to sleep and you wake up on a different timeline. Now, the different timeline means anything can be different from little nuances and details up to big things. Like, let's say, the experiences you have with your friends or with your family to the point of what you actually own or don't own anymore. Things can disappear or appear. Opportunities can show up, and just in general, your experience in reality shifts and changes on little significant details that then build on into other timelines. And it's just a cobweb of everything everywhere if you kind of can look at it that way. The way I imagine it in my mind, that really made it easier because when I was like learning and hearing about this, it took me about 4 or 5 years before I actually grasped and felt and integrated the knowledge and kind of realized what it is on a deeper level, because you don't understand this from watching the fucking Matrix or some other trippy, nuanced movie. It seems like that, or even someone explaining it to you and you being like, oh yeah, great, awesome. I can just do whatever I want and change anything because I understand this logically and I can make it real. I believe in myself. I mean I'm over exaggerating, but it is a point that it's not really that simple. You
Mm,
need to understand how you function like within this ocean or framework. It's like a certain type of terrain in a multidimensional way. So instead of time being this linear line, you actually have dots of time scattered all across. You have a huge array of dots in just an empty space, and you yourself kind of vibrate to the different spots. And that's how time is actually built. It's not a linear line of experience, it's actually you making your own drawing amongst these dots as you jump through from point on to point on to point on, maybe like coming back to some points, but they're a little bit different, or maybe continuing on to something that you have like as an end date and it looks like an end date, but it's very malleable in terms of how you move through time. Um, yeah, that's as much as I can get into it to try and explain it. I mean, did I miss anything about what the hell timelines are? Probably lots.
I mean, it's interesting to me because I've never really, I'll be honest, you've not, in the time
Spoke.
we've known, you've
I,
not
I was
not
thinking,
said that to me.
have I not?
And so I am actually experiencing your understanding and interpretation of it right now, and I'm like, is that true for
Mm-hmm.
me? And that's actually a process that when I hear something new, I go through myself. So
Yeah.
I'm legitimately going through this process of, is that true for me? Because to me, when I look at timelines, and this is probably more, I guess, the mainstream type of view. If anyone's seen the movie The Adjustment Bureau with Matt Damon, and they have these books. And in the books, it has all the different like if they do this, it leads to this, then it leads to that, and it's like a big tree, decision tree, and depending on the decisions that get made depends on where you end up in your life. um and obviously you can go back and it goes forwards and it gets really messy, and each person within the adjustment bureau has a book of their own life. And that is not necessarily how I personally see timelines, but it's the best physical representation of
Mm-hmm.
how I see timelines.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
um, because depending on people's decisions, depends on how it's affected. Um, the other thing I will add with timelines is sometimes we, and this is my personal belief, so take it or leave it, but we come down and we have a bunch of contracts. And when I say contracts, what I'm talking to is like agreements with people that we've made before we've come down onto planet Earth to actually do different things with.
Hmm.
So, for example, is a simple contract, and this can legitimately be a contract that you have, is walking past someone and smiling at them and them making them feel like they're having a really great day and that changes their day.
Yep.
That can be a contract. It can also be the person that runs into you and spills coffee on you.
Yep. Contracts
Um,
are just experiences, not good and bad.
100%. Um, but they can also obviously be bigger contracts. Like, for example, anyone that you're in a romantic relationship, more than likely than not, you probably have some form of contract of what you want to experience with that person.
What you want to heal, what you want to experience, what you want to have, what you want to learn.
Hmm. But if you never meet that person, you're not going to ever have those experiences. But that experience that you want may be so important to you that you have different points or different people that you've made agreements with to actually still have that experience just with someone else.
Yep.
So it's kind of this, for me, web of decisions, part fate, part contract, part your own decision.
That is an interesting difference because in like when you mentioned that there's the closest example being this, I think the closest example, although I have not read the book, but it's just been referenced, and I'm like, that's probably, the one
Hmm.
that is that book because like transurfing, the way they describe it is you're walking on one world on one string and then it just shifts. It's just like it gets swapped and you're
Hmm.
on the other side or the other one
Yep.
or whatever. And just that image of like transurfing, like surfing through different timelines, kind of going from whatever to whatever. In my experience of it, or the way I kind of have come to it, there's a lot more freedom with it. I've never take like I understand and know what contracts are, but contracts for me are a different thing, and it's more connected to like relationships or what happens between those souls that have signed up for that experience. That point of time or the timeline is just the place, or it's just the environment in which the energy is encountered. Um, but the people are kind of like that important little twist for me. Everything else to do with timelines for me, like you can have more fun with it. It's not all about contracts and goals. You can get into some really crazy places and see that a lot is possible
Oh,
with you accepting your power or something like that.
definitely. Me talking about contracts makes it sound like it's all business and there's no
Yeah,
fun.
yeah,
Um, but the reality is that contracts are 100% fun. We're having quote unquote contract experiences all the time. We just don't know that they're contracts.
yeah, exactly, makes sense.
Uh we and a perfect example for me is I was working in a shopping center, and there was this older gentleman, and I saw him, and it was a pretty quiet day, so I was kind of like I wasn't really doing much, and I just started up a conversation
Hmm.
with him and found out that his wife had passed away a few years ago, and he was quite sad, and he used to go to the shopping center just to get out of the house, and so I just had like probably a 20-minute conversation with this guy. um, and that was a decision that I made in the moment.
Yeah.
And I said, "Have a good day. See you later. Maybe I'll see you, around because I'm going to be here for this long in this shopping center, and then we're going to another shopping center. But otherwise, have, maybe I'll see you another time." And we in the time that we were talking about it, he had talked about how he was getting ingredients to make scones. Now, for any of our non-British viewers, uh, Scones. I'm trying to think of the US word um that they use because it is
They
like what they
they
use.
yeah. Scones.
Biscuits,
Yeah, but no,
scones,
they say scones, not scones. And the thing is, it's a pastry that has like pastry kind of thing that has
it's not
raisins in it
word.
in the
It's
UK. That's
more of
that
like a
it's. I mean, it's a
bread,
biscuit. It's a
bread,
biscuit bread thing.
biscuit bread.
Biscuit
Yeah,
bread thing with like raisins in it. That's what a scone
yeah.
is. And that's how it's called in America as well. At least in Canada for sure, they know what scones are.
I think they call them biscuits in the US. I don't know.
And
I could
yeah,
be
they
wrong.
like biscuits with raisins, but they're like kind of doughy like bread. Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know. You guys
yeah,
can tell us what they're called. They're like they're also
yeah.
scones. What are you talking about? It's not scones either.
I mean, that's my Australian accent. We call them scones. Um, and so I just continued about my day. Um, and he came back with two piping hot scones for me, and he's like, "Thank you so much. You really made my day. I don't know if you have anything for lunch, but I made these for you. You know, otherwise you can have them after you finish work."
Oh, fresh scones. That is really good. That is really cool. I would,
Right?
yeah.
And that was an experience that I chose. Now, if I was to look from it from a contract point of view, the contract could have been, you know, I got the experience of someone giving me something for me just being nice to them. But for him, it might have been the fact that I gave him sociability and a bit of enjoyment for his day and made him feel good and have a good day, which led him to having a good week or whatever it was, right? That's the contract perspective. But when we look at it from the human's perspective, it's just an interaction that
Yep.
is really memorable, and the scones were absolutely delicious. Not
Got
gonna
it.
lie,
Nice healthy snack.
that I did. So that's, I guess, what I mean. Like it's not that
Hmm.
experience isn't necessarily going to change my life, but it might too, right? It might make me be nice to strangers more often than not because I've had that experience.
Yep. And now we're gonna go to the malleable part of all of this because some contracts are set and some are, you could say, shaped through experience and your choice and decision.
Mhm.
It's destiny and fate kind of playing in hand.
Yeah.
And let's say you're, one of those people that are aware about how you can change or shift your own energy vibration state to experience a certain thing or have a certain balance of energy around you. That then changes the point that whatever experience is upcoming for your contract that is malleable or even is set, the experience can shift into a better or a worse state from the human experience. In general, there's no better or worse, but from our experience, obviously, there's like, I'm going to enjoy this more, this is going to be better for me,
Mhm.
or is going to like not be such a high calamity case for me personally in my life, or it's gonna tear shit up. I'm going to cry because this person is gonna lose their shit at me and I'm not gonna handle this well, this, that, and the other. All of that is kind of built with how you basically change your beliefs or perception around reality and then where you want to be where you can fit in, who you have to be to fit into that timeline or that scenario or for it to play out that way. There's a lot of ways of playing with it. And contracts are all about basically going through this process and learning your best way on how to deal with experiences you've signed up for in the best manner that serves you and the other person the most. And it's always different. It's not always going to be a case of like good or bad things happen to me, or I'm always this or that to other people. It's always going to shift and change into, hey, we've signed up for this experience where I perhaps am going to be a teacher in a very dramatic like sense or whatever, a very tense situation. Now, how do I want to actually experience that as it's unfolding? You'll you're going through let's say your timeline, seeing little hints and little signs on where you are and what's happening and what are the different choices that are open to you and how you could act or what could play out after that. You can dig into this on such a detailed scale, but you also don't need to, honestly. You can keep it as simple as I'm going through my life and I am going to experience these things I signed up for. I want to make the best I can of it. How do I make that happen? And more likely
Mm.
than not, without attention, you're still going to have that occur.
And I think that's a really important point to actually make, is that we don't need to be aware that we have a bunch of contracts. In fact, probably the only thing that it's going to help you with in terms of awareness around contracts is the fact that you have the choice to end them or not.
Yep, that's basically it.
That is probably the most important point, is you can literally, and I will say this, some contracts you cannot end. You will try to end them 1,000 times, and you're like, why is this contract not getting ripped up? It's because it's one of the contracts that you've signed up for that you have to learn, you have to experience. There is no opt out option of this contract. But in a romantic relationship and you've broken up with them and you think that you're meant to have a contract with them in the future, and you're like, it's going to be shit, you have the option to say no. You can literally say, I'm done with that
Yep,
relationship, I'm ripping up the
exactly.
contract. And disconnecting from and cutting those cords. And if you are cutting cords, always important point, always when you I for me, I visualize it and I cut it from both ends.
Yep,
The reason being, if you cut from one end, it can join back together. If you cut it from both ends, the middle piece is too long for it to join back together unless it's meant to join back together.
yeah. Um, Another little detail of that is you can cut it by the middle and then visualize it going back to people, but that's only with certain types of connections. And if it's something unhealthy, usually it doesn't work. But if it's a healthy, like, yeah, we ending this, bye bye, you then can do that as well. That's the one I use for most of the time. I've gotten into like chords and disconnecting from people, but yeah, Jessica's thing works way better. Believe me, it does.
It's the one that I use all the time. If I'm like, I'm just gonna cut the cord. It's a standard practice for me. If I'm cutting cords, it's two ways. It's not one. And I mean, sometimes I do regrow. I'm not gonna lie. There's been times where I've cut the cord and I'm like, all right, great, that's done. And then I've like connected back in, and I'm like, why is this cord back?
What's happening?
What's happening?
Yeah.
Like, I cut this, and then I think about it and I think, oh wait, I generally tend to have opened something up for me to process, which has then connected me back to that person.
Yep. Yep.
And then I have to process all that stuff. And then when I finish processing, cut. And if it comes back, it comes back.
That
Right. But if it doesn't, sweet, we're good.
that's the other thing with my method, why it worked so well and so much for me. When I kind of do that or did that, I was with the intent of like, I know this is not the whole entire thing. It's not like you can snip and that's it. You're good and done. No, that's not how relationships work. No, that's not how you as a human being with relationships work. um, you're gonna have to process things. You're gonna have to realize what you're letting go, what you're letting to die, basically. You're also probably gonna have to go through a bit of an internal aspect death or something being like, yeah, no, something's like, getting reframed here. and cutting in the middle and then sending both ends back to their original, let's say, people, with love and care and respect, and being like, I'm done, actually helps, because that aspect of the cord still has, it can symbolize the point that this is what I need to work past and what I need to process for this to go away. And I kind of, I'm okay with that. I take that up. I also don't need any of your stuff. You can keep yours for you, because I'm better
Mhm.
dealing with my side. That will help you if I sort that out. And you can deal with your side because you're best equipped for that. And I'm kind of like sending you a, like, I'm rooting for you with this like snip and goodbye. Because usually I also experience the reaction of the other person. Sometimes it was happy, sometimes it wasn't. And even when it was kind of a case of like they tried, reattaching, or I would try reattaching, it wouldn't work. There would be a wall
Mhm.
because I've set such a strong intention with the way I've done it. But also I've noticed that your way of doing it is kind of in a way easier, because if you're already in a point where that could just be like quickly done and forgotten, your method is better because you don't need to do anything. It's like, oh, so this is like the last nail in the coffin type of thing. To
100%.
yeah.
And but I mean, if you bring the intention that you have that you're doing into me cutting twice, right?
Mhm.
Which is generally the intention that I tend to bring. What is mine comes back to me. What is theirs goes back to them.
Oh, but same
Uh,
shit. Yeah, same thing though.
Same thing. I always set that intention. Um, the process will come up if it needs to. Um, so that's a really really good point. So either process,
Mhm.
100%. But one of the important things is what's yours comes back to you and what's theirs goes back to them. Because if you're carrying around something that's theirs or they carrying around something that's
Mhm.
you, the connection's still there.
Yep, true. True.
You're you're not going to be able to disconnect because they're carrying your energy and you're carrying their energy.
Mm.
Um, so that's part of the reason why that's such an important step to that process, which it's funny because we both didn't mention it in our processes, but it's something that we both do
Yep.
within the process. Is like, hey, send me back mine and I'll send you back yours, and I'll deal with my shit and you deal with your shit.
We good. Bye bye.
Just
Yeah.
like packing the box of like
Yeah.
stuff, leaving the office like, this was a great job, I'll see you later, I'm taking my stuff home with me and you can have the office stuff that I don't want because
I
this
don't.
job
Yeah,
sucks.
I don't give a shit. I'm done. Like, uh,
Like it you've got to take your own stuff. You can't just be like, oh well, I didn't really want to have that piece because they were holding on to it for me because I didn't really want to deal with it. And
yep,
now that we're cutting this cord, they can keep that piece.
yep. That's not how
Not
it
gonna happen.
works. Um,
I mean, it'd be nice. It'd be nice because what you do is you just give pieces of yourself that you didn't want to other people and be like, great, I'm the perfect person, right? But that's spiritual ego.
yeah. I mean, that's just leaving. Oh, well, there's also a big ass misconception with that, because you're like, I'm gonna leave this behind and I don't need to deal with it, and etc. It accumulates if you're that lucky with being able to leave it, but it's just farther away from you. More likely
Mhm.
than not, what happens is you try running away, and it's like something's following you, right? This cloud of like, why can't I get away from my family problems, for example, or something else, like anything. If you've not dealt
Mhm.
with your aspect of your shit, it's gonna come back and haunt you. That's it. That's just how it works. And damn it, I just had like also a really good point on like how this relates to the whole timeline thing and etc. Nikes. You have a point. Just save me right now and like say
I
something, because I'm
mean,
like,
how for me, how this connects in, how cutting ties connects in, is it can shift timelines.
yeah.
Um, because if you have one person in your life And let's say they're a very karmic person and you're learning the lesson of cutting that toxic person out of your life and stepping into your power and truth. This is just an example. There's obviously plenty of things that you can choose from, but this is just the one that popped into my mind. And you cut that cord, and you cut, that's it. The contract's done. Um, it may push you onto a higher timeline
Yep.
versus you staying with that person and going through another karmic relationship with a really karmic life that you just keep adding, adding, adding on.
Yep. That's a really important thing. Um, Also, you don't need to be anywhere or get stuck anywhere because you signed up for something. The only thing you signed up is to go through an experience, process it, let it go. It's not your saving whatever grace. It's not your responsibility, although there we go, responsibility, that's the thing. Thank you, me. Anyway, it's not your responsibility to stay within the contract or the timeline or make it right or make yourself enjoy it. The only responsibility you have, and this is a really, really, really important point on whether you, if you want to be aware and work with this is 101 what you have to do. If you don't want to work with it and you don't want to be aware and you don't give a shit, this will just still help you in general. Um, Accepting responsibility of self or accountability of your own reality and the point that you are actually the one that is making it the way it is, however you're making it, and you've signed up for whatever you signed up. But there's always choice. Just because
Mhm.
something is predetermined does not mean you don't have choice. And the best and the easiest way to shift these things or have a easier experience, regardless of what you signed up for or what you have to experience, is accepting that, taking accountability, and trusting yourself that you've chosen the best thing for yourself as well as other people. You're gonna get through this the best way you know how to, and it's okay making mistakes because this is why you're here. And through this process of accepting and going on with your own responsibility, you will pop up in the most best place that is for you. You just need to actually have trust and faith. Everything goes up and down. Timelines or jumping timelines or going through contracts isn't one thing or another. It's usually a spectrum between what we consider to be good and bad.
100%. And I think to kind of add on to that, um, one of the things that some of my teachers have expressed to me over the years, of different people that I've met, is I'm a human having a spiritual experience. So the at the core of it, right? We're spiritual beings, or actually, sorry, it's I'm a spiritual being
I
having a
was
human
thinking,
experience.
isn't it the other way around? You're a
It's the other
spiritual
way around.
being
Sorry,
having
having a
yeah.
human experience.
That
Um,
I mean, you could sorry, you could expand on it. Sorry, but because there's a way of saying it that will really hit home. You're a spirit having a human experience that's masquerading it as being a human that's having a spiritual experience.
yes,
That's it.
100%. Um, so the most important thing is to have those human experiences, and I think sometimes um, within the spiritual community, it's about being not human, right? When more often than not, the experience that we're here to have is to actually experience being human, experience having the emotions, experience the ups and downs of life, experience the chaos, experience the peace, the happiness, the joy, the love, the laughter, everything, right? Every single thing. The low points, the high points. If we didn't have that, we wouldn't be human. We would be something else. Would you rather be a plant, right? Would you rather be a drop of water in the ocean right now? No, because you chose to be human in this life. You chose to have this experience and to expand who you are as a spiritual being.
Yeah, facts. Do you have anything else with a very emotional point? because I'm gonna talk about the more intellectual side of that, or how it's and I
I
feel like
mean,
there might be something else, no?
there possibly is, but it's like brewing, and
Ah, fair
it's
enough.
gonna
I'm
come.
waiting for
It's gonna
the okay. Because what I remembered about is it's really interesting how there's obviously agnostics within the spiritual community, and this in general, like this whole topic, everything to do with manifesting your own reality, with you being a person with a great tool being your mind in the seat of a planet of creation of your own will, was my thing. You can make yourself happy. You can make whatever the fuck you want in your life. You can change whatever's not working, and it's gonna take time, but that doesn't mean it can't happen. And it's just a case of like, what do you want to believe and not. It's really interesting to me how it bridges over spirituality into even a bigger community, because people that are into physics, people that are really into psychology and the power of self, or your mind and emotions, or let's say psychonauts, just in general, the whole group of people that are into the power of the psyche or the mysteries of it, instantly just join spirituality in a way, because spirituality is one of those things where you go through life bettering yourself and realizing how you can connect to yourself as well as whatever higher power you believe into. Now that takes a lot of work because you're undoing emotional, psychological layers of your own self in ways that you understand and you don't understand, and it's going through layers of childhood trauma as well as whatever beliefs you take up, and then something way deeper beyond the surface that you might not tap into from past lifetimes and beyond that. Now, when it comes to anyone on the other spectrum that is more, let's say, agnostic with manifesting reality, they're all into the health nut thing of like, how can I crack my own mind for not just the best experience and the most craziest shit I can have, but just the most interesting truths of myself, and how close can I get to fear and not be broken by it. That's especially true for psychonauts. How close can I get to the most terrifying, most locked away secrets of my own self as I am connected to the universe, and still be fucking okay and somehow get better and raise up to the next level. Psychonauts are one of those, like, I would call them spiritual jackasses in a way, because they're disconnecting their own internal self, just going through this whole truth and reality as like punching bags in a way, like spiritual punching bags. And yet they're still obviously going through the same thing of you are learning about your own trauma on that deep, huge level, how you relate to people, what you do, and you're constantly, as you're shedding that, switching around what we say is subjective reality with your own objective reality, just traversing it as well. Um, it's just interesting to me because it's one community, but in reality, it's like this one thing bridges so much, because that regardless of where you are from and what you believe in, you can tap into the point that everything's very malleable, um, and create
100%.
some interesting experiences.
And knowing that we have some level of control over the experiences we choose to have actually allows us to actually step into what it is we truly desire. I mean, this podcast is called Awaken Dreaming. And part of the reason that it's called Awaken Dreaming, it's literally stop dreaming yourself asleep, right? Actually start dreaming yourself awake into the life that you truly desire, whether that be in the spiritual sense or if that's in a purely 3D physical reality of actually just the mundane things.
Yep.
Um, one of the biggest experiences, and you can, depending on who you talk to, this experience you could just consider it a spiritual experience, or if you're talking to someone in the self-help community, this would be like manifestation, or
Yeah.
me just getting myself into the right mindset to actually start to create this experience. Um, and this experience was legitimately me every morning. I would get up and I would visualize, and I go through this process, and I'm going to just quickly take you through the process. And I would take a few breaths, ground myself, into that moment, be present to that moment, and then I would start to fill myself up with gratitude. So I'm priming myself,
Mm.
which is, if we're talking priming, it's a self development word. I'm priming myself to have a fucking amazing day,
Yeah.
right? I'm bringing all those happy endorphins and chemicals because my brain is going, I am so grateful for everything that's going on right now. I'm programming my brain. I would then move on to what I had to do for my day, and I would visualize my top 3 things that I had to do for the day, whether it be something as simple as washing my laundry,
Hmm.
right, or paying my bills, through to me going to work and doing that thing that I really needed to do, or taking that step to that goal that I knew I
Yeah.
was going to do that day. So whatever it was, I visualized those 3 things, me achieving it, how it made me feel. Again, priming myself so then if I get to that task and I could, like, let's say it's ironing, I'm not a fan of ironing. Um I'm priming myself to have the experience at the end.
Yeah. That's a really good
I'm
technique.
prepa- I'm preparing myself to actually, I am so glad that I've done the ironing and I don't need to do it for another week. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Makes sense.
And having that experience and that feeling. So then when I get to it, I'm already thinking about the end.
Yeah.
I'm already thinking about, hey, when I get to finishing this ironing, I'm going to feel so good.
Yeah.
Um, and then after I did that, I visualized my goals that I had. And when I started doing this at the time, I was studying. And one of my goals was to graduate university. So every morning, and this was for the whole entirety of my degree, every morning I would get up and I would visualize myself going across the stage, shaking the person's hand and getting my certificate for graduating.
Hmm.
But not only that, I would also visualize how I was going to reward myself for actually achieving that goal. For me, that was buying a dress to cross the stage,
Yeah.
right? From a particular shop. And I visualized that. And I didn't know what dress I was going to wear. It didn't, the dress would change. Every single, like, over time, the dress didn't matter. The What was important was the fact that I was visualizing myself, and I would also visualize myself sitting at my computer for hours typing out assignments, studying,
Yeah.
going to classes, right? The mundane things. Now, when I went in there, my expectations that I had was peers get degrees.
Yeah.
um I literally, and this is without a word of a lie, I got a grade point average of 6.0, and I had a full-time job at the end of my degree.
Manifestation in action.
Manifestation in action. Now, if I hadn't have done that, maybe I still would have got a grade point average of 6.0,
Yeah.
but I highly doubt it, to be perfectly honest. But because I'd primed myself to prepare myself for the amount of work that I was gonna do, and kept thinking of, "I'm doing this so then I get to cross the stage to shake my hands, and then I actually get to go out and do what I wanna
Yeah.
do in the world." With this degree, I was preparing myself every single day to take those small steps, those tiny little baby steps towards it.
Yeah.
Now that's a very practical, very not new agey spiritual way. That's a very self-help way of doing it. But I can tell you that it freaking works.
Yeah.
Um, and I visualized other things using that, and they also happened. And I continue to do it, and these things continue to happen. Um, so that's my That's my method that I
Yeah.
learnt from a teacher of mine, that I continue to use.
Nice.
And it takes about, for me, it takes about 10, 15 minutes in my morning. And who doesn't have 10, 15 minutes in their morning to
Go.
to visualize every morning? Like,
Yeah.
you literally roll over, stop your alarm clock. First 10 or 15 minutes is just you getting primed for the day.
I mean, you don't even need to look at it as like you're, like hyping yourself up or anything. You could just look at it as you're spending some time in your day thinking about the things you want and like. Oh my God, it's very simple. It's a little thing
Yeah.
that we should all do a bit more for ourselves rather than just enjoying the experiences that we have. You can enjoy whatever you want to enjoy before it happens as well by just daydreaming and etc. A lot of people have this misconception that daydreaming doesn't do anything for you. I beg to differ. It is a really potent energy of your mind that can create a lot of things. And the thing that has been stuck in my head since you started talking is I just have a bit of a dare for someone that needs to hear it. I don't know who it is, but I feel like someone needs to hear a bit of a dare, and it is, don't you really want to experience a more interesting sort of life where there's more possibilities with less effort, more intent, and just a belief and desire of feeling like you deserve something better or something you want, even if it might be a mistake, even if it might be something wrong. Wrong. I think you're gonna get past that belief if you think it's wrong. But you can actually make that happen. You can do that today. You can try a few things. Like one of them, when I heard this, I'm like, thank you for sharing this because I don't do things like the way you said. For me, it's ups and downs where I do a lot of it and not a lot because there's like an avalanche that comes down on me from my experience and just things start like happening that I thought of a year ago, 2 years ago, maybe even like last month, and it all just starts happening in succession, one after the other. I've always had it like that in my life. I think the first time it was really noticeable is when I tried praying for just once. I prayed when I was 13 because I'm like I'm gonna either try it or not, and I got everything. So I think I already mentioned that at some point, but to you, I don't think I mentioned it on the podcast, did I? No, I didn't. Basically, in the span of a year and a half, I got the six things I prayed for, maybe more, and three of them were material goods that I was like, in theory, that shouldn't have happened, and this was not going to happen. No one was allowing this to happen in my life at all, and now it's
Mhm.
fucking here out of nowhere, and I asked for this for 7 years. It didn't happen. This is outrageous. I've had a completely different experience up till that point, and then after that, everything changed exactly the way I wanted it to. You don't need to even do that if you're not comfortable with going past yourself and honestly praying, because that's kind of difficult. You need to honestly say everything you're feeling from your heart, and expressing the point that you hate something might be a bit hard for someone, and then going to the point of, well, I want this and I deserve it. The tarot reader gave me the best example that was the most simplest is instead of your to-do list, say I manifest and write down either the time or don't write it down if you don't need a time and look how quickly it will happen. Great thing about it is you don't need to do everything you put on the to-do list. If you manifest it, it might happen for you and you don't know how, and you can just see how that happens. You needed to do the laundry. Oh, look, your roommate said, "Oh, I thought I'll throw yours in while I was doing mine. I didn't mind, this, that, or the other. Could you like hang it out or something like?" Oh, I wanted to manifest that pretty piece of jewelry. Oh, this long lost relative finds me out of nowhere and just gifts me the jewelry for no reason because they were like, "Oh, you seem like a cool person. Okay, great." Like there's so many different examples that can happen from little effort. I most of my life have experienced weird happenings and I wasn't ever doing manifestation. The only thing I heard about it was when I was 13. For some reason, everyone throughout the entire year was reminding me of the point of You can manifest your own reality with the effort of your mind. That was everywhere I went. My teachers were talking about it. I got a book with a few examples read from it. My brother was constantly talking to me about it, and everyone was suggesting it because I was really depressed. I was the most angry, depressed kid you could find, honestly. And I tried it. It fucking worked. And since then, I've noticed that I have done the most outrageous stuff my friends still are in awe about. If I ever meet someone new and I tell them about my teenage years leading up to now, they're just looking at me like, huh? How? For example, if anyone wants to know just the highlights, I have not went through the education system as you would expect. I have mostly not been around in education. My grades are still good, and I am still a person that is looking forward to university still being a thing, though I haven't finished shit in terms of high school or college really in a way or university degrees, but I have been in all of them. My life like is really malleable to the point of travel. I have met opportunities that have come down from nowhere, and with the restrictions that I experience from, like, let's say, my family members or my surrounding reality because of either my age, or the documents or have, or this or that or the other, have not applied at all. I have left the country at an earlier age than it is allowed just by myself. I have gotten job opportunities after not seeking any for 3 years on the spot like that, and completely got it secured to a point where I was also being put for a promotion, and it keeps going. The list is not, it's not stopped. The possibilities as you go through them and experience it, as you start growing awareness that you might actually deserve what you want or you aspire for or you dream, it just grows and grows and grows and grows, and you get theirs along the way from your guide team, from yourself, from your friends and family that might have actually said otherwise a few years prior, to do the most outrageous things that you don't believe you can achieve. And it just becomes a lot more interesting because as you also go through it, you find out ways how you can do it in very interesting ways. It's not about necessarily you making the physical efforts without resting in a 9 to 5 job and grinding it out and being like, this place is going to look after me and they're going to settle me and sort me out. I am doing the right thing. For some people, it is like that. Don't get me wrong. And you can build whatever you want like that. But at the same time, with my experience, for anyone that's an eccentric weirdo that or feels like that, and has a interesting life full of turns and twists and whatever, that's okay. And you can actually make a lot with that, regardless if you're aware of this or not. But if you are one of those people that needs to take a step towards, let's say, testing the bounds of your reality or what is real or not, and it's driving you slightly nuts, try one thing where you're kind of like, okay, I'm going to put my heart and soul into this intention of creating or changing something, and I want to see if it happens or not. Um,
Mm.
One of the best, best, best fucking ways of doing it that I've heard from a person, Gem Goddess, if anyone watches her tarot, is I love it. She uses the water method with the crystals that we mentioned last episode on your intent. She uses a water bottle. Doesn't matter what water bottle, but you write out your intent on a piece of paper, long ass piece of paper. You don't need to do all the steps, by the way. You can like change this what I say to your own thing, but this is how she does it. I didn't do it the same way either. I'll tell you all about it, but she writes the whole intent of what she wants in detail, in specifics, on a piece of paper of what she wants, and she attributes it to one word or just some type of label that is on a separate piece of paper. She plasters that on to a water bottle. I mean, with her suggestions, it's better to have it as either metal or ceramics or glass or something, but plastic works too. Um, and then she kind of connects that and she sits with it, she feels into that place, and then she pours the water in. Doesn't matter what type of water, because you're already shifting and changing the water yourself. She holds a water bottle and she puts that intent in there, very locked in it, visualizing, feeling herself there and everything. And she puts all of that energy and just everything into the water bottle. Now, the thing is, she also says the reason like have like a proper water bottle for it is because you're gonna need about 2 liters or something for this for the 2 months upcoming, and it needs to not go bad because water can go bad, just FYI. If you don't know that, yes it can. What watch over your water. It has to not have shit in it and all the rest anyway, but that helps you change your timeline or vibration because you're constantly drinking the intent you're putting in. When you put in your intent, you might wear off it rather than work on it and stay there. So, this is a perfect way of if you have a lot of self doubt, if you don't believe in anything, if you don't really have these, let's say, dedication or determination that would work for you to create whatever you want, because let's say you're in a dark place or whatever, many different reasons, or you have a block
Mm.
with something. This is by far the one thing that I'm like, it will help anyone, in my opinion, because of the effect of water in general. And if you're working with it, you're literally, every time you sip it, you set that for the entire day and you don't need to do anything else. You don't need to write like Jessica just said. You just drink, that's it, you good, go on, have fun. You'll forget all
Exactly.
about it, and when you finish the bottle, you're gonna be like, this happened? Why did this happen? How did this happen? You just drank some water. Nothing magical, kinda. Depends on how you look at it.
And I mean, I think it's also important to note that sometimes the things that we think we want to manifest, they don't manifest. And that doesn't mean that you're bad or wrong or you've done something. Sometimes it legitimately is, it's not manifesting because it's just not meant for you.
Or it's a timing thing.
Yeah, or it's a timing thing.
Yeah.
But getting caught up in the cycle of I tried so hard and I didn't get this thing, and and I've had experiences with people that are like, this is the only thing that I wanted, and now that I don't have that, what's the point, right? Manifestation needs to be a process that is separate from you being attached to the outcome too much actually ends up affecting the outcome and generally tends to squash it and squeeze it. Think of it like you're holding a egg. You're not going to hold the egg to the point where you crack the egg and squeeze it into your hand, right?
Yep.
Because you want it that bad. You're going to hold the egg gently, and then when the time is right, you're gonna do whatever you wanted to do with the egg, right? Make scrambled eggs, fry it, whatever it is, bake a cake, make a quiche. Whatever it is that you were planning to do with the egg, you're gonna do
Eggnog.
that. But if you
Sorry.
eggnog, but you're not gonna squeeze it and squish it in your hands because that's not what you truly desire. What you truly desire is to crack the egg and then use it. Um, but holding on too tightly to that manifestation is not great.
Yeah.
Don't be Humpty Dumpty.
That's a good
don't be
good
don't,
one.
don't be Humpty Dumpty, guys. You know, while it's a great
Wow.
nursery rhyme, he fell off and he cracked himself up.
I can't remember the song that was sung as well. There was a song sung. I know that. There was a song. There has to have been.
There is
There
the
we
song, and
go.
I'm not gonna sing it for you guys. Everyone, if you don't know it, YouTube it,
Humpty
Google it,
Dumpty.
Spotify it.
The egg that
Humpty
fell
Dumpty,
off
sat on a wall.
or sat on a wall. But he fell off. I mean, it's a really
Yeah.
sad story. It's fucked up. It's one of those stories that is really fucked up for kids.
I mean, most nursery rhymes are pretty screwed
Like
up.
Bring Around the Rosie and everything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. If you really think about it, particularly at this moment in time that we're living in, Ringa Ringa Rosie is like
Oh,
particularly
uh-huh.
particularly not like the greatest thing that you probably really want to be singing and bringing that energy
Yeah.
into your environment. But as children, we actually, and this is actually an important point, we don't actually interpret Ring a Ring a Rosie with the historic meaning connected to the Black Plague. We connect it with happy children dancing around in a circle. And it's not till we learn the association of the history behind it that the intent behind that song actually changes.
Yep.
If our intent is that it's a happy children's just singing and dancing in a field, right? That's that's actually the intent that you are creating. And that's such an important point within your manifestation. Intent is key
Yep.
to it. It's at the core of everything. If you can't find the reason, the why, your intention for actually manifesting something or removing something or whatever it is, adding something into your life, it's less likely to happen
Yeah, that is very true. Uh,
because you haven't found that golden key to actually unlock it.
yeah, I mean that's one of the reasons I kind of look into looked into all of this from the perspective of you make everything with your mind and that whole rabbit hole, because if you're going through that avenue, it is especially important for you to not attach or overcomplicate things, because then you can't figure out shit. You're just going to be spinning wheels thinking, I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this, and not getting it. When in reality, yeah, you can get as complex as you want about your manifestations and everything, but in all reality, there's also a simple formula to it, which is assess your responsibility and accountability to whatever it is that you need to assess that to. Believe that you do deserve and you can let go, because you need to let go to get what you deserve, and you need to crack both of those things. And besides that, little details matter on where you are and how you do it and from what place you're doing it. The reason that is so important as the last one or whatever, if you have it as a list, you can put all the points in different places, doesn't matter. But the third one I
Mm,
listed is you have to not be, let's say, standing on the timeline you want to go away from. If you internalize it as this is me, this is never going to change, this is that and whatever, and you're just attaching to it or solidifying it because you're reaffirming what's real. You're constantly creating everything. This is just a little twist of how you can actually make it easier for yourself or make, you know, let's say the experience itself easier. So first, you need to let go and detach from the old timeline, or know that it can change, or know that it is changing. It is changing is the best choice you can have in terms of how you perceive all of this. If you can truly find within yourself, sometimes it's not going to be simply being like, oh yeah, this can change. No, sometimes you need to sit down for an hour or something with yourself, drinking, like a hot cup of tea and being like, okay, how can this change? What the hell even is this? Why don't I want it to change? Why do I want it to change? Why do I not like it? Can I even go through this? Do I deserve it? Like it's a process. It's a
mm,
process. This is why positive thinking doesn't work, because you have to do what you have to do for yourself, with yourself, to actually change whatever and anything you want, anything around you as you're going through this process, because it might be one evening that you shift everything, or it might be a few years. Sorry, not sorry, that's a fact. Some things like abundance takes years. Love takes years. These big, huge aspects of what defines our entire life and what we value or live with life is gonna take years. But you can start today. That's great. The earlier you start, the better it gets. And you can literally just stop running away from whatever you want. Sit down with yourself and kind of think through all of these steps. And more likely than not, something's gonna change. And the next day you wake up, you're gonna feel better. because something changed.
Mm. And I think the last kind of point that I'm kind of like probably, and I don't know, this might be to wrap it up. Um, when it comes to manifestation and timelines, one of the most important things that for me I've found over the years is to remain calm, to
Right.
to actually
Like how you brought it
r-
back.
to actually find that inner peace within yourself. And I know that that's not necessarily the easiest thing to do, especially if there is shit flying around everywhere. If you're in a shitstorm, right? Finding that place of peace can be absolutely ridiculously hard to do.
Yep, yep.
Um if not impossible. The thing with all of this manifestation, all of this, if you make it 1% better, if you bring yourself 1% more peace, you're actually shifting the timelines just by doing that.
Fact.
You're actually shifting the outcomes of things just by bringing in, and then next time you might do another 1%, that's 2%, next time 3, right? You add and you add and you add, and eventually you start to be able to gain like some level of control, because obviously we can never gain full control of what's actually going on, and being able to stay more in the center, more in that peace, which then allows us to think clearly and make decisions clearly, to then be able to choose the timelines that we want, the manifestations that we want, the thought patterns that we want. It all adds up, which is why mindfulness is not only such a big thing within the spiritual community, but it's such a big thing in so many different religions, so many different self help. You look at it, it is literally everywhere these days. And they've just labeled it in different terms, right? Just different wording for the same thing, which is find that center, find a way to be the center, the eye in the storm, where everything is flying around you, but you're not actually flying around in the storm. You're just actually staying in your own power and your own truth.
Yep. That was a perfect way to describe it. I mean, that's what I mean by accountability and responsibility. Because when I manifested myself a huge ass shutdown for 1 fucking year where I couldn't do shit, I couldn't even use the computer, guys. I couldn't do shit. I got this book from my friend. I will actually show it for anyone that's in the eastern side of the world because it's a really good, useful book. I mean, this guy in general, like I'm not gonna say that everything he says or writes is right or wrong or whatever, but it is useful regardless. I'm all about books today. It is this one. Valery Singlindnikov. I can't pronounce his fucking last name. It's Russian. In Lithuanian, it says "Love Your Illness," which is basically this book explains to you how you manifest and are responsible for and whatever you are. Now, as you are responsible for it, you are feeding it as well. So that's your intent and your emotions and how you feel about things. Finding
Mm,
peace with things, any aspect, anything externally or internally is the first step to doing anything or changing anything, especially if you're ill, is what he gets to in the book, and it really helped me start going through all of the things that basically piled up into me creating a nerve crash for myself for a whole year. Um, Finding peace and accepting and letting go is the first thing you can do. For some, it's going to fix things right away. For others, it's going to be a year-long process. But once you start
or
that,
longer.
or even longer, um, you're actually going to feel way better. And just the experience of whatever is unpleasant or pleasant is going to If it's unpleasant, it's going to tone it down a bit. And if it's pleasant, it's going to be amplified so you can still be grateful for what you're going through and the point that you are actually in the power of changing it. And you can breathe and calm down. It doesn't matter how long it's going to take. It doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter where you're going. The point is, you can calm down, be okay about it.
And just quickly, I guess to kind of help people start to find that peace. I mean, obviously the go-to is meditation.
Yep.
And when I speak of meditation, I'm not necessarily speaking closing your eyes and just focusing on the breath, because I have spoken to plenty of people, plenty of clients that I've had that literally say, I can't do that. Like,
Mm,
I close my eyes and then, the have I put the washing on, have I put the dinner on, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. Oh, I'm a shit person. Oh, I can't even got to damn concentrate on actually doing the thing that I really need to do for me. I'm a shit person. Right. And then the loop starts. Um, so they can't do that. Right.
yeah.
And we're not all made to be able to sit down and focus on the breath, and that's our form of meditation.
Yeah.
There are so many other forms of meditation. Um, for gym junkies, going to the gym and just focusing on those movements is an active form of
Yep.
meditation. Uh, cooking and just focusing on the cooking, same thing. There is a psychologist called Csikszentmihalyi, and he has this theory of flow. And flow is a state where you get into, where you literally lose space and time. You're literally, and if you're coming from the spiritual perspective, you are literally manipulating space and time in order to have a different experience where things generally tend to either slow down or pick up speed. So you can lose yourself in like a painting or music or gaming or whatever, cooking
That's
at the
the one for
gym,
me. I manifested
right?
everything I experienced because I was gaming after I prayed, and I was thinking about it in the background constantly
Hmm.
and imagining myself there. But go on, you had a
And
list.
and what it is you lose that space and time. And it's a graph, and you can look up, like, flow theory is the theory, and it's a graph, and it's literally the challenge versus, so obviously it has to be challenging enough that your brain is active, but also as well, you still need to be learning new things about it. And between the two things, if you get this like perfect, like, sweet spot, um, you go into this flow state, which is what artists are consistently chasing. They're consistently chasing. Like, if you talk
Mm,
to any artist, they're consistently chasing going into that flow state, because they just fall into total bliss in that, where they're just totally absorbed in what they're doing. And that is not necessarily your mainstream interpretation of uh, meditation. It's a form of mindfulness, but it 100% still has an effect on the brain and brings peace to the brain.
the best ever meditation tip you have told me is sit the fuck down for 10 minutes. What, you don't have fucking 10 minutes? What's wrong with you? You can spend 10 minutes. I'm like, uh, but, 5 minutes. But, I can't
Hmm.
disagree with the 5, and I can definitely push it on to 10. And before that, I spent like 2, 3 hours meditating and stuff like that, and I've achieved that. I don't need to ever fucking do that ever again. I don't even meditate every day anymore. I choose specific, certain different things to get into that state for just even a little bit, because the only thing you do is you calm your brain down about what it's cycling through. It's like being still in its own storm rather than all over the place, and it's all the same. You're just changing your own experience about it. You can do it walking, drawing, uh, listening to whatever the hell you want and just looking at any one spot or multiple things. Get on the train with your headset on. Come on, we've all done that. That one works like perfect. Everyone does that every single day. Just do anything. Smokers, you do that when you smoke cigarettes. Just be, really enjoying the cigarette if you want to do that. If that's your thing for you. Like, I mean, start somewhere. Um, it's a really
I mean,
little thing.
my two favorites, and this is my two favorites that I love to do is sitting and staring at nature, but it's not I'm just not looking at the overall scene. I'm looking at one portion of the scene.
Remember.
So like it can be a tiny little leaf, and there's this magical moment when you're staring at one portion of a nature scene that your brain actually starts to open its awareness up and you start to see things. And through this, I've seen uh, birds and butterflies and things that other people would not see because I'm just taking that moment in time just to sit and focus on one thing. And then my peripherals actually start to pick these things up just naturally.
Makes sense.
And what actually happens on a physical response level is your heartbeat reduces, your breath naturally slows,
Mm,
um, and you don't even have to focus on it. You're just looking at a leaf or a waterfall, whatever it is, focusing on that, and you can move around, every so often in that scene, taking in different portions of it,
yeah.
and you're going to find that level of peace.
Literally physically, what's the stress hormone? That thing starts
Uh,
leaving your body.
I can't think of it. My brain is
Yeah,
gone with.
I'm just gonna be like, stress hormone. I can't remember what it is now off the top of my head, but that literally starts going away, allowing more blood flow to your whole entire brain, and it also helps you kind of bounce back with the whole thing if you're like sleep deprived or whatever, making the chemicals that were missing or whatever even. So meditation literally is like the best way for you to shift into any type of state, whatever it might be. It's really important to know that you're definitely at the power of your own mind and emotions and state and well-being. For anyone that is, and this is a friend of mine that like cracked the code, and I'm like, oh my god, that's a really smart idea. Like I have anxiety and panic and a lot of other things. For him, it's way worse. And he figured of a way to go past that, which is he just needed to select 2-3 hours, either once or twice a week, for him to lose his shit over and be like, I'm allowing myself to lose my shit over everything that's wrong, I want to make wrong, what I can't sleep over, what's building all of these emotions. I'm just gonna let myself lose my shit, whatever, like, however it's gonna be. And he might be gaming for like those 2-3 hours uncomfortably, or he might be actually crying on the floor or whatever. Like, he might be having all of these different experiences, but because he made that intent that I'm gonna do this so I can mindfully work on myself or spend my time elsewhere or just relax and let myself freaking relax for once and go into whatever blissful state I need to go to. That intent, him instantly spreading it apart, made it like, oh, okay. Like the brain understood, oh, okay, so I'm okay to do this, I'm allowed. And now I can also do this and not mix all of it together into one thing because I don't understand where I am or what I'm doing or what the hell is happening. He would just
Mm.
make that the case, and he noticed that his mind wouldn't get ahead of himself. He wouldn't have difficulties carrying out tasks that he needed to do or what have you, like this, that, and the other. I eventually took it on a different way because I realized that if I can just tell myself, hey, I'm gonna allow myself to freak out and feel all of these emotions rather than trying to fix them right away. And then once that's done, once I have my moments, I can actually go calm down and watch at all the, cars or the stars or whatever in my balcony and have a drink and a
Mm.
smoke and just calm down and think and whatever. that instantly, now the way I've worked with myself lets me go into this state of like, okay, so what's next? I just went through this, what's next then? And I just constantly do it naturally. Like if you get to a point where you're open, you don't need to actually even do anything. You can just let your brain figure it out and you're like, okay, different experience. Let's go.
That's it. And it gets easier with time. Like all these practices gets easier with time, and then you can start to do them and with other things in your life. Like one of my favorites is enjoying like a cup of coffee or like food that I really want to enjoy, and I literally will just take like one sip of coffee and just savor it and allow myself to enjoy it as if it was the last cup of coffee on the planet, right?
Nice.
It's like, like delish. Or that dessert, like, I haven't had this dessert. Like, you think of it like I haven't had this dessert, and it might be I haven't had this dessert since yesterday.
Mm,
Or it may be I haven't had this dessert since 10 years ago, and you're just savoring that dessert because you don't know if you're ever going to have it again, right? It might be another 10 years before you have that dessert, or 10 years before you have that favorite meal, or never again. And those little things, like that's food. And some people will love that. It's also actually a great way if you're trying to lose weight. Slowing down and savoring your food will actually help you lose weight because you're naturally going to find that full point. So that's just a side tip there for anyone that's looking to do that. Um,
your body also takes in the nutrients in a more effective way because it is like, oh, so I'm taking this in. This is the process. Okay, A, B, C, D, blah, blah, blah. Your body literally is like, oh, this is great.
But it also, as when I started to do this, I actually started to realize some of the things that I thought I enjoyed eating,
You did?
I I didn't enjoy eating, or I
Okay.
didn't enjoy drinking, because I slowed down and tried to savor it, and I'm like, actually, this is like horrible. I really don't like this. And so I actually stopped eating. And generally it was things that were actually more often than not great for me. But because I slowed down and actually went, hang on a second, like this isn't doing it for me. Um, I switched up. And of course there are some things that aren't great for me that I still love, that I'm not gonna give up, that I still enjoy and savor. So it's not like I'm just over here eating kale and celery every day because it's the best thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, um I do enjoy chocolate. I do enjoy, these other things that aren't necessarily, in large portions good for me. Maybe a small portion every now and then is okay. But I also then savor it more.
Yeah. I mean, that just goes to show you that with you taking more time to be mindful in the moment, in the present, so much more opens up to you from like little things of like whatever I enjoy on a daily basis, either with my diet or with my habits. Like with you taking a bit of a moment to be more mindful helps you do the things you want and basically not do the things you don't want. If you still have, let's say, attachments on behavior that doesn't work for you, you're then still with that like first step that you take, and if you repeat it over the course of time, we'll notice that hey, maybe you start getting warmed up to the idea of like eating a better diet or actually going out and having that walk every day you said you wanted to have, or meeting
Mm.
one person at least every week that you haven't met before, or sleeping the right amount of hours, this, that, and the other. There's so many things that can change with you just being mindful. And that's where you also start jumping timelines. That's that's it. That's basically it.
100%. And just keep it small. You don't have to do everything that we've mentioned in the episode. Pick one.
Find out
Pick one thing.
find your tools. That's also a thing. This isn't the same for everyone. We already said this, but the spiritual community has its definition. That's it. It's not all right or
100%.
wrong.
And we haven't mentioned even the half of the stuff that's out there.
Uh-uh.
There are thousands and thousands and thousands of ways to do all this.
This is gonna be a few-parter because me and Jessica have many crazy stories on what happened with us jumping timelines, from items disappearing to new people appearing to I don't freaking
Building,
know.
moving.
Buildings moving. Oh my god, that one. Buildings moving. Oh my, storms appearing in a split of a second when they shouldn't
Mhm.
have been happening. What else? What else? Being able to talk and not being able to talk with whatever person around. Like, remember that wall we had ages and ages ago and we sat in the same like channel and both of us were like, why can't I talk to you? Why is it like we're so far apart? What happened? We were just literally talking about everything a couple of days ago. So the next episodes are probably going to be us talking about what we've experienced as well as how we actually apply the knowledge, how it's changed, the tools we found work for us on a level. There's also going to be an episode where we're debunking. Definitely gonna have to do that one. How we're debunking
100%.
the misconceptions and timelines, your inner vibration, how that happens in shifts, positive thinking, manifestation, and meditation some more, because that we mentioned just the most basic thing anyone should be doing for themselves, which is letting yourself breathe for a damn second and forgetting shit happened. But there's so much more to it as
Which
well.
which isn't necessarily easy for everyone. So, if
Really
it's
hard
not
for
easy
me.
to like I for me, I was pretty okay with it. But I think part of that for me was because I did a lot of swimming in my youth, and that's literally a form of meditation. So I was training myself to meditate before I even knew what meditation was.
Hmm.
Um, so that's part of the reason I think it's easy for me is because I was kind of already doing it. Um, but I know a lot of people struggle with it. And different forms of meditation I do struggle with, not gonna lie.
I do different types of meditation. If you think about it, I do almost basically every type of meditation. I actually, no, I'm gonna have to correct that and say I've done every type of meditation that I'm aware of and not aware of even, because I have zoned out whenever I was a kid and some crazy shit would be happening. I'm not gonna fucking lie. Me in a back seat of a car was a trip, man. I was in a spaceship. Stuff was fucking occurring, and I was literally physically seeing it. Colors were flowing, and I'm like switching back and forth in my mind, like, huh? Is this happening? Am I crazy? Is this normal? Is this imagination? Is this what imagination can do? That like changed to walking, swimming, video games. I dare say even intoxication on some level, but don't do that. That's a horrible idea. Just because you can't do that doesn't mean you should be doing that. That's not a effective way of manifesting because that is very potent if you are capable of doing that, and you can, in theory, take people with you. I've taken uh, Jessica here on a timeline change one day when I was drinking on Discord and just having fun, and then we also realized that maybe it wasn't just her, it could have been like six other people taken in, and I kind of stopped doing that. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure I've already done that all my life, so that's gonna change. And just driving
Yeah,
for
I
some
mean,
people, everything.
that was an interesting timeline shift, which we won't get into today.
Yeah, but that happens in many different ways. I mean, we've had another like interesting thing to mention about meditation. We've meditated together for hours on end at some point,
Mm.
and we wouldn't be saying anything for 30 minutes, but there would be shit happening for those 30 minutes. Like a lot of stuff would be happening, and we're not saying anything. Funnily enough, the stuff we would talk after those sessions would appear in a few months. That's happened.
100%. And we'd be seeing the same things, even though we're in two different countries, two different time
Mm,
zones, you know. And this is where that matrix, that, world
everything's
starts to
connected
collapse. Yeah, everything's connected, all starts to collapse.
because if
And it brings us, I guess, right back to the very beginning,
hmm
butterfly effect, right?
yep.
Something's happening to me, ripples around the world to Yuta. She sees the same thing. At the end of it, we both come back and we both talk about it. Or have like, hey, oh, I didn't realize that it was this, and connecting the dots and being able to put two and two together.
hmm Yeah. Definitely interesting because there's just so many parallels that you see, and it's kind of like if I didn't know any better, I'd just say this is not real, but the evidence is physical, people. I am so sorry, but like, eh, so we're gonna
It comes
definitely,
back comes
mm,
back to the first episode. It's all real.
yeah, it does. When you, it really, I just gotta put it on record. It's still really fucking weird when someone else is having the same goddamn experience, except the only difference is they're saying it with their perception. But it's the same thing. It's like if you would be saying the same thing in two different languages, and everyone was fucking aware about it. And it's just really, really trippy how much happens is connected, reflects, etc. I've had deja vus actually about Jessica since 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. I've had so far 5 or 6 dreams where I'm like, oh my god, it explains so much. Oh my god. So this is why it was like this and that and blah 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 and it's I don't know if you've had any of those things, but yeah, we're gonna talk about
Mm.
all of it in the upcoming episodes named timelines.
And can't wait.
Gonna be great. So, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I was Yuta Jazz.
And I'm Jessica, and this is Awaken Dreaming.
And it is time to start living, stop dreaming, and create whatever the fuck you want because you deserve it, bitch. Sorry, I just really needed to say it like that for some reason. Get to making your dreams come true. Come on, chop chop. Everyone's waiting. Everyone's waiting. You create your dream, the other person creates their dream, and it goes on and on and on and on and on and on. Because we're all connected, and we're in this together.
Be the butterfly
Be the fucking
that
butterfly.
creates the.
All right,
See
that's a
ya.
wrap. Bye, guys.